I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Buffett made an investment, a set of investments where he bought 5 to 10% stakes in a bunch of Japanese trading houses. And it wasn't a lot of money. I think it went like $6-7 billion went into that, which is very small for Berkshire. But the interesting thing is that when he did that investment, the entire amount he invested, the entire 7 billion he invested, he borrowed in yen in Japan. And he borrowed it at like 0.5% a year or something. So here's Berkshire Hathaway sitting with 100 billion of cash, earning nothing, sitting in US treasuries, earning nothing, like, 0.25% or something. And he goes and, invests in these, 3 or 4 Japanese companies. And he doesn't put up his own money. He borrows the whole thing. And the reason he did that was that these companies had a dividend yield of 7-8%. And he probably also understood that they were cheap. They were sitting quite cheap. Now, what has happened in the last 3 years is all of them have moved up like 50 to 70%. Okay. And he's paying that 0.5% interest and he's collecting 7% dividend. So this is what Munger describes as, he says, Warren has a very large brain, and that brain needs to be active, but it needs to be active in a manner that is not detrimental to Berkshire Hathaway. So this Japanese bet is not going to do anything for Berkshire Hathaway. But what it does is it soaks up brain power for Berkshire. It it is this kind of funny, interesting mathematical game where he is able to show the world that, hey, look, here's something that was sitting there where I couldn't put a lot of money into it, but I could put 6-7 billion, and without any risk, really, I'm going to make several billion on it. I mean, the annualized return on that and the annualized return on equity invested is infinite. It's a crazy bet. And he's done this in the past. Like one time he issued debt for Berkshire at a negative interest rate, right? And he issued it just to show that it could be done, right? So there's a bunch of activities that Buffett engages in, which is basically to soak up extra horsepower, because if you don't soak up the extra horsepower, it's going to lead to negative results. So Bridge soaks up some extra horsepower. These Japanese bets soak up extra horsepower. He's done a bunch of these weird things, special situations and things. He does some of that in his own personal account. All of that soaks up horsepower. He bought a bunch of cheap Korean stocks one Saturday afternoon looking at a report, and none of that moves the needle. But it basically, what Munger told me is that those activities are really important because they make sure that nothing weird happens with that extra horsepower.